early childhood. And I'm not very good at introducing myself, so I'll just say I have a pretty extensive wellness background, so this kind of fits into kind of my comfort zone. I love to be active with my family, but I also really love to promote health and wellness to the people that I work with. Any chance I get, I'm trying to give them, just fun, active ideas for them to do with their kids. I run the FIT program here at Early Childhood Connections, which encompasses that too. I went to school for wellness and management, and then I ran track. So I have all that background, and I'm really passionate about school agers. I mean, kids in general, but I love to work with them as they get older. I also have two of my own school agers, plus another one. My boyfriend also has a daughter who it's kind of confusing because she's middle school, but she's still a fifth grader. She's in the Piedmont district, so just kind of working with that. But I don't know. And I just, yeah, I guess that's all. I just love wellness.
Krista brings a wealth of knowledge and a broad spectrum, so she'll have some great things to add on to Sarah. Okay. So when you typically hear wellness, I'm sure most of you though think of like the physical, right? The aspect of keeping your body in shape or keeping it healthy. And tonight, I think as both of the experts touched on, it's like the whole picture, right? So we talk about teaching the whole child. We don't want to leave out like, yes, we're going to teach them their ABCs, but what also is important, their social emotional well-being, their mental health, their physical development, right? So the same thing goes for you as the teacher. We have to think about you as a whole. So this quote here, wellness is the complete integration of body, mind, and spirit. The realization that everything we do, think, feel, and believes has an effect on our state of well-being. So your whole picture, your whole rounded, what you present to the children that you provide care and in your life too. So I'm really thankful that you guys are here, that you're invested in this wellness journey. We're going to have a conversation that it's more than self-care and more than stress management, right? It's how you care for one another in the field because this is all about human connection. It's about how systems either nurture you or drain you, and then about the care that you provide for our youngest learners. Wellness isn't a luxury, it's a condition for quality. And what I mean by that is it can't be something that you pour into because you have a little bit extra time or a little bit of money. It's something that you need to be investing in from the beginning. So the emotional, physical, and mental well-being of early childhood professionals directly shape the environments that the children grow in. So you are shaping the children. Your wellness is shaping the children's wellness, if that makes sense. So, and the work is hard, and we know that. And it is draining, it's relational, it's emotional, and it's often invisible, meaning you don't get the credit for all of the work that you're doing, right? It's hard to continue to see yourself as a professional when the outsider and the community don't always see yourselves as that. And it's hard to talk about the work that you do when a lot of times you can't. You can't say names, you can't give examples, right? So it can be very isolating and draining. So tonight we want to honor that invisible labor of caregiving and the advocacy as a form of wellness, because speaking up and advocating for yourself and policies and sustainable practices is a part of the work too. And you don't have to do it alone. We are creating a community and a culture, hopefully, that will help you through this. So it's more of a wellness collective, if you will, and your well-being matters. And we see you and we're invested in helping you. So let's take a breath and we're going to get started. The importance of wellness in the field of early childhood. So each of us is going to add a little bit of why they feel it is. So let's start with Sarah and we'll popcorn around.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say, like, after Rose's introduction there, like, let's go. I'm so excited for this wellness piece. But when I think about wellness, especially in the field of early childhood, being a mom myself, I know being a mom and taking care of my kids, the hardest job I've ever had. And so, first of all, I want to say thank you, sharing my gratitude for all of you and what you do. But also remembering that we all are going to have days where maybe we're struggling more than others. And that's where we continue to take care of ourselves, but we also lean on one another as we do this work. So I really love how Rose uplifted that. And I'm just excited to keep leaning into this wellness. And I also want to say it's such an honor to be called an expert. I think you are all the experts. We're going to just share our collective wisdom tonight together in this space. So I'm going to toss it over to Krista if she has anything she wants to add here before we get going.
Well, I got so caught up in trying to figure out how I'm going to introduce myself that I forgot to mention, Sarah, that I too am trained in crim, which is a huge thing. So yeah, I am Sarah and we have history with crim, which without that training, I honestly, that is a huge piece of wellness, which I'm excited to introduce some of that to you alongside Sarah tonight. But with some of those additional pieces, wellness is just, I mean, so often people are like, oh, health and wellness, like it's just a word that kind of just falls and people don't really think too much of it, but it's so encompassing. And I guess just some personal stories, anytime I'm feeling irritable or tired or even energetic, mad, any of those emotions, doing some sort of wellness activity, it helps and it brings you back, where you're able to focus, or it brings you back into a good state of mind. And so it doesn't have to be, people think all kinds of cardio, for wellness, or, just so many different aspects. It could be breathing, it could be taking a drink of water, it could be anything that just helps you in that moment. Is wellness. So taking care, again, like we said, of your mind, your body, just everything. That's what wellness is. And so I really hope that you guys can take away something from this training that will work for yourself. Maybe you can share it with a family member or your parents that you work with, and or even provide it, for children, because there's going to be so many good resources. So
Great.
yes.
I'm not going to talk anymore because you guys already listened to my spiel. So maybe later I'll have time for a little anecdotal story that I'll add in. But let's get in more to the topic at hand. So, why should we focus on wellness in early childhood? So, we already kind of mentioned this in the intro, like children's well-being is intertwined with the adult wellness, right? It's not two separate entities. You're not going to have a very healthy child well-rounded and the adult is not. It is going to go hand in hand. Wellness is a foundation for quality, equity, and sustainability. And this is across all areas, but even more so in early childhood. So when you have well-rounded and healthy teachers and an environment, the quality is better, the equity in the environment is better, and the sustainability of that business and the teachers within it, how long they're going to last, is so much bigger. Systems must support both the caregivers and the children. And like I said already, they are intermeshed. It is not one separate without the other. So wellness in early childhood, it's essential. It has to happen. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight on some of the practices that you guys can do to help implement it. So if you've attended any of our previous ones, we've kind of concentrated on breaking it down into principles or practices that you can take away tonight. We have 7. So we're going to allow each of the experts to speak on them as we go through them. Like I said, if you have questions or thoughts, there's actually going to be slides that Sarah has placed within the principles to allow you to have time to have those conversations and questions. So that would be a great time to hop off of mute or drop it in the chat. And without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Sarah and principle number 1.
Awesome. So I love starting with this because it's so true that this is a common human need that we all have, which I think is beautiful. It reminds us of our common humanity. So if we want to jump to the next slide, Rose, we're just going to get right into it. And sometimes I think we overcomplicate this and what we can do for our own well-being. So I just want to open it up for a second to all of us as experts in this space and think about coming into this present moment together. I know when I was coming here, I was a little distracted from my kids, what I was doing before I get here. I kind of feeling a little bit unsettled. And so we're just going to come into this space together and practice that well-being right now, here in the present moment. So I'm just going to invite you. You can type your answers in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and say them out loud in the space, you sure can. But if you could just look around your space right now and see if you can find something around you that's bringing you joy, maybe peace, maybe calm, and just notice that for a second. And then if you want to, you can share that in the chat so we can experience that together. I'm going to look around my pets, animals, pictures of my kids on my desk. Love that. My cat. I saw a cat on a Zoom square somewhere already. I love that. More cats. Awesome. Loki. What is Oh, is that somebody's cat? My dog. So I'm noticing in my face already, I'm smiling. I'm enjoying this. Like, oh my gosh, we're in this space together. For me, I have this little turtle on my desk, and my turtle brings me some joy and helps remind me, like, I can go slow. I don't need to have everything figured out super fast. Oh, Sherry, I see your cat, my dog, and my daughters. Thank you, Carol. Cool. I love that. So we're just going to sink in that feeling as we start here together, building on the skills that we already have. We remember that we have wellness skills. Sometimes we just need some reminders and some tips. So maybe we can give you some extras today. Okay, so when we think about that adult and child wellness, just as Rose talked about, we're all interdependent and we co-regulate each other. This to me is both terrifying and amazingly beautiful, because when I think about when I'm at a loss of what to do, I'm speaking about my own kids now. Sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, Sarah, all I can do right now is regulate myself. And I'm going to trust that eventually my kids are going to regulate again too. Yesterday, my daughter, we have one of those marble machine things where you build the pieces together and you do the marble machine. And she's bringing it from the basement out our back door. And of course, she gets halfway up and she just loses it, giant meltdown. And so I'm trying to sit there on the stairs with her, helping figure this out until she was calm and we could try again. And I didn't know all of what the meltdown was about, but it was like, okay, I'm going to trust if I can stay calm, she's going to get there too. And that caregiver well-being influences child development and classroom quality. So we set the tone for everything that happens in our classroom in our own tone of voice, what we practice, and that sense of belonging. That's really key to our own well-being as well. And then we can have support through that planning time, reflective supervision. We're not in this alone. Mental health supports, and then fair wages. So remembering this goes beyond just what we do for ourselves. We're thinking about that whole system today. Then when we think about, this is a CRIM slide. So when I say CRIM, and Krista had mentioned CRIM, that's the community resiliency model. But when we think about that common humanity and our wellness, this is really, in CRIM language, that common humanity comes within our nervous system. So we all have this nervous system that helps regulate us and helps kind of clue us in when our nervous system is out of whack, like, oh, I am stressed out. Or how can we calm and regulate that nervous system? And that's a common humanity, common human experience that we have, our kids have, the parents of those kids have. So thinking about coming into that well-being together in that space. Then the last slide I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to toss it to Krista, is when we think about that nervous system. And I'm not going to go into this. Those who have taken CRIM trainings, you know I love this slide. I love the nervous system. But I just want to show that when we think about well-being, and we know that it's body, mind, spirit, it encompasses all of these things, but one doorway in is through our nervous system. And that's been really helpful for me when I think about, oh man, I'm so stressed, I don't even know what to do. Sometimes I just think about, can I slow down? Can I regulate my body? And then the rest of that wellness sometimes comes back into place. And so I love that image, connecting it to the body, because for me, that's been really helpful. When I maybe don't know what to do with my thoughts or my feelings, I can connect into my body. And that's where I'm going to toss it over to Krista.
So to kind of stem off of what Sarah was talking about, um, having techniques, wellness techniques like breathing or different things like that to help you regulate as well. This is a slide from the CDC. So according to the CDC, here are some health benefits of physical activity. So again, we're talking about the whole part of wellness. Well, yes, that does include some physical. Now it doesn't mean like you have to just go run or do all these things. No, it could be like a light walk, or with your kids, taking them outside and walking around because although you want them to do something, you're also helping yourself in return. If you're like, hey, let's go for a walk, well, you benefit too. It's you have to think about that. How can I create activities that I benefit from and my kids benefit from? Because then you're all going to release endorphins. You're all going to pump that blood to your head. You're all going to feel better at the same time. And I know sometimes you might be like, well, we go for a walk and the kids are just blah blah blah. You can still set up, different ways and go through directions and whatnot in order to prepare for that, but then get into a routine. So maybe you want to try to go for a walk with your kids, but you're like, well, they can't handle a half hour, 20 minutes. Go to 5 minutes. Start off on a 5 minute, let's go look at these leaves outside, or let's go do this 5 minutes. Then you're going to go to 10 minutes. Then you're going to go to 20. And before you know it, you and your kids are going on this half-hour nature walk and you're reaping all these benefits, all these health benefits. So not only are you helping yourself, you are also helping your kids, which we have handouts too that show the health benefits for the kids and health benefits for older adults. So these are really good resources, but I'm going to say this word over and over and over. Be very intentional with what you are going to do with your kids and for yourself, because the more intentional you are, it's gonna flow so much easier. So whatever goals that you want to do health wise, be very intentional. And also you've got people that can help you. So anyways, yeah, that's what I have for that one.
Perfect. And like Krista mentioned, these handouts were emailed to you. So you guys can use these, just for yourself. Or if you work in a classroom or you're an administrator, feel free to print these out and put them in your staff lounge, and then that way when somebody's taking their 30-minute lunch break and you can see that they're super stressed, maybe invite them to go for a walk, right? To walk around the block and so that they get that reset that they need. Okay, popping back over to Sarah.
Okay. So just like Rose introduced us to this idea at the beginning, when we think about the work that childcare providers do, and I resonate with this, I think, in the social work profession as well. But when we think of those helping professionals, we know that there's a lot that goes unseen. And so we just wanted to take a few minutes to really honor you and honor that we see you and we lift you up and want to give voice to all of the amazing work that you do. So when we think about that, this is going to be another opportunity for you. We invite you into this space. Again, you can come off mute or you can write it in the chat. So we're going to just start with the top one for now. So, what's something you wish people knew about the work that you do? This could be positive, this could be more challenging. What do you think? Go ahead and put that in the chat, or if you want to speak it into the space, feel free to do that as we see and hear each other tonight.
While you're talking in the chat, I'm going to say what's something I wish people knew about the work that we do. So, early childhood educators, I really wish, and it's kind of my goal to be an advocate for all of you guys, because it's not so long ago that I wasn't in your exact shoes. So, more boots on the ground. But that I wish people knew the importance of what you guys are providing for children and the long-term effects that it has on not only these children, but our communities, our state, our nation, and these humans. You guys are helping them at their most sensitive time period, and the rest of their life trajectory is impacted by the work that you guys do. So it is very important. So that's what I wish people knew about the work that you guys do.
Thank you, Rose. Elena shared in the chat, it's a lot more emotional than most think. They don't understand the bond we make and how we make them. Yeah, it's heart work, right? It's hard work and it's heart work. When we think about what you do every day, building those relationships. And when I think about that, especially when I think about my own kids and when they're struggling and having a hard time that I'm working through with them, I think that's really hard. And that's also where those relationships get cemented and go deeper, is in those challenges. And so that's a gift that we get to walk through hard times with our kids, even when it does not feel like it. And it is emotional. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Elena, for bringing voice to that. Anyone else? What are you thinking out there? What's something you wish people knew about the work that you do? JC shared, as early childhood educators in general, the amount of time and effort we put in not only at our centers, but at home as well. And when we don't just do it for a paycheck, but it's because we actually care. Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of a point I wanted to bring up. When we talk about well-being and that wellness, we want to remember it's not just so that we can be well at work, although that's very important. We want to be well at home too, right? Be well in all areas of our lives. So we have some energy left for what we want to do outside of work, which is really important. Riley shared, I wish people knew that you have to be particular in how the classroom is ran, because even at a young age, schedules can make or break your day. Yeah, there is a lot of skill and talent and thoughtfulness that goes into what you do. And Krista is way better at me at thinking about all the scheduling time stuff. She might talk about that later, but absolutely, that is so true. Sherry talked about, I do a lot of extra work at home, studies info on young kids. I go the extra mile because I care. Yes. Carol, I wish people understood how incredibly complex human development is. If they understood that, they would be more appreciative and respectful of teachers and caregivers. Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about that later, but the the professionalism and the level of skill that you all have is incredible, and definitely something that I think goes unseen and unheard. So thank you for that. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears for a second. And oh, can you go back? I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
sorry, sir.
No, that's okay. So now I just want you to think, if you want to add anything here to that second question, why is this work so important? I think we hit on some of that in these, but if anybody wants to add anything more about why do we do this work? Why is it so crucial? When I think about um, our community, our state, our nation, I think we all know that it starts with our kids and how we take care of our kids. So for me, that's why I think it's so important, because we're setting the foundation, right, of loving on and showing up for our kids. Elena shared it's important because this is our future. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Can I add something?
Yeah,
Um, I think it is so important to really hone in on wellness at such young ages, like especially in infancy, when they're learning all of these skills. You have to practice certain skills for them to hold their head up, and now they're gonna start crawling and then they're gonna walk and then they're gonna walk and do all that stuff. So by practicing those healthy habits, and also modeling them in front of infants and toddlers, and just it doesn't stop. It's an ongoing process. Wellness is forever. It doesn't just stop. It starts at infancy and carries on clear into the elderly. You know, it's just it's skills and things that can just go forever. So
Yes. Thank you for adding that. Riley shared this is important for the well-being of the kiddos and understanding that they may not be able to speak, but they communicate when something is off. Yeah, absolutely. That really goes nicely with what Krista was sharing as well. It starts right away, and we get to model that and show up in that space together. So we know this, right? But we wanted to give a little bit of space to just say, we see you, we hear you, and practice that wellness for just a minute tonight. Thanks. One more I'm going to read before we go into this, and I will share what Chase said. Early years are the most important when we realize how much we aren't born knowing and how much needs to be taught. It's our job to nurture them and teach them not only education, but how the world works, like managing emotions or being shown their words matter. Yeah. And when we think about helping show them how the world works, hopefully we're showing them this world that is full of trusting, loving, caring adults, right? And that's the world that I want my kids to grow up in. And so thankful for you showing up in that space. Yeah, so we know as this invisible work is happening that there's that emotional labor that you all hit on, cultural brokering. We're navigating all sorts of different cultures coming into our centers, our classrooms, that relational work that often goes unseen, and validating and compensating caregiving as professionals that you are. So all of that, again, coming into how we understand that well-being. Krista, anything you want to add on this slide?
sure. Um, I guess I could throw in, I think somebody mentioned it in the chat earlier, just kind of that emotional toll that this job plays, you know, and it is like we're talking about wellness and it's hugely emotional. And so I've got a word for that, and that's compassion fatigue. Um, that is the physical, emotional, and psychological impact of helping others, often through experiences of stress or trauma. So it's kind of like that invisible work that we do as well. You know, often, I mean, we work with some, serious cases of kids, in all different kinds of situations. And it is so hard not to take that home with us. It is so hard not to, like, especially like you guys were saying, how passionate, we all are. Well, I'm going to care about that kid now that I know more about that kid. I'm going to take that home. I can't stop thinking about this kid. What else can I do for this kid? Well, to be quite honest, in order to help with that compassion fatigue, and sometimes we can relate that to our own trauma. Oh, yeah, he's going through the same thing that I went through, and this, and this, and this. But the best thing that you can do for that kid in your program, you cannot control what goes on when they go home. But what you can do is, since you are with that kid the majority of the day or the majority of the week, is you can provide the healthiest, the safest, the most wellness focused program for them. And you can be that's where you can play the biggest impact on this kid. Now, they might go through some hard years, but as they get older, as they grow up, they can remember, hey, my teacher taught me these skills, that I'm going to take forever with me. And then they're going to go on to help other people. So that is the best thing that you can do for these kids. Um, let's see, what else did I have? Um, just a few things too. Yeah, we can't help them, but you can't help them at home, but you can help them ongoing, and just teaching them, like, maybe, something that you can help them with is, let's say you do relate to them in certain ways. Well, what is a tool that you have used in your life that maybe you could pass on or teach them as well? So that is that aspect of you helping that and creating this healthier pathway to a better life for these kids, passing on the tools that work for you, or maybe you guys discover tools together. maybe you both have, similar things, and it's like, all right, we're going to do our lion breath because something, might have triggered us, and we're going to like, breathe and roar at the same time, and then we're going to feel better together. So you're not only helping, again, helping yourself, but you're helping the kids that you work with. So just a little example, but
That's beautiful. Thank you. All right. Number 3. So when we think about trauma-informed care, we're really thinking about this again as a system versus maybe that static strategy. It's going to be a system that really plays into all the different parts of what we do. And we want to touch on it here when we think about our own wellness, because we know that trauma, stress affects our wellness. And then we also are going to add on a piece about resiliency here. This is another crim slide, but it's a really good one. So we wanted to add it here when we think about what does trauma-informed care mean. And we're going to define that a little bit more in the next slide. But for this piece, it's just a little snapshot of understanding this is in our own mind. This is a perspective shift that we're trying to make individually and on that organizational level. So when we think about for ourselves, our coworkers, our colleagues, and then the kids that we work with, shifting out of this conventional assumption that everybody's bad, we need to punish them, that question, what's wrong with you? And really shifting into this trauma-informed awareness that we're going to talk about more in just a second. But understanding that we all suffer or have suffered, gone through hard things. Life is hard. And that we can learn how trauma impacts both a child's development and also our own development. And maybe when things come back up for us, like, oh, realizing that's a normal human response and I'm not broken, I'm okay. And maybe leaning into each other when that occurs. And then I love this last column. So thinking about that trauma-informed awareness and then also marrying that with this resiliency-informed action, where we're holding on. Yes, we're understanding that there's suffering and there's hard things, and we're also holding on to our strengths, that we're resilient, that we can get through difficult things, and we can learn skills of well-being and keep practicing those together to cultivate our own well-being and reduce that suffering. And ask, what's right about you, or what's right about me? What are my strengths? What are my team strengths? Right? What are my the kids that I work with? Or sometimes the hardest question, what are the parents' strengths? Right? What's right about those parents that we're working with, and really digging deep and believing the best of our parents and our families as well. We're going to jump to the next slide and really just think through these different key components when we think about trauma-informed care in a system. And these, you guys are experts in these. We're just lifting them up and really giving them this name around trauma-informed care and understanding that we're going to assume that we need to do this for everyone, right? We need to do this for all of our kids, for all of us as adults, because we don't know what people have gone through. And this is really best practice. So we want that safety that we've talked about, that trustworthiness, building that through communication, through appropriate vulnerability, right? When we can do that, we want to have that space where it's empowering. So we're leaning on each other's strengths, and we're telling each other, wow, you did a really good job. That was awesome. Giving each other opportunities to do what we're good at, being collaborative, knowing that we're working together as a team. When I think about this, at the alternative school that I get to do wellness work at, we talk a lot about how there are going to be times in the day where somebody is needing to tap out for a second, right? It's a very stressful time. So thinking about, okay, I need to take a minute to take that breath, to do something as I go walk to the drinking fountain and back. And then I know that when I'm regulated, I'm going to be that for my other coworker, right? And we're taking turns in that space. I'm being, again, culturally responsive, thinking through and being curious about other people's lived experience and what they're bringing to the table, having those practical strategies. And Chris is going to share some of those nuggets here as we keep going, having calming spaces, um, predictable routines, and again, that reflective support. So leaning on our supervisors, those people that are maybe in those administrative roles that we can continue to learn in that space together. And I want to toss it over to Krista here as she thinks through how some of these pieces might show up as we think about this slide and the next slide.
While I'm transitioning over, I'm just going to add a little bit into directors and admin. Who do you lean on for your reflective support? And you can lean on ECC. You can absolutely call us and say, it's been a crap week and I just need someone to listen to me. And we don't have to always have the answers for you if you just need to vent. So absolutely, you use us if you're in an administrative role. Okay, Krista.
All right, as we have, and Sarah, you sum everything up so well. So I'm just trying to kind of lead into that. But on this slide, we're going to talk a little about strategies, schedules, and routines. And so basically in programs like we think about schedules, we think about routines, some of them have to be stiff. We have to cover all these things and we have to do this and this and this and we forget to realize that we want to create an inclusive environment for all, which includes flexible schedules but consistent routines. Now there's a difference in how those are. Okay, schedules can kind of shift based on maybe something happens, we have to switch sometimes around of when we, might do our circle time or things like that. But you're still consistent with the routine of doing circle time, or you're consistent with the routine, because kids expect these things. But but schedules can't always be rigid. Routines can stick, but do you guys can understand what I'm saying? So create that environment where it's like if time is not allowing or if maybe the kids' inability to sit still or something like that, do not push through circle time right now. Part of wellness is we need to do a big breather right now. Okay, we're not gonna hit this mark right now. We will get to it. And yes, 9 o'clock. Oh, it's circle time. We have to do it. No, listen to your kids, listen to yourself. If you're not in that mental space, it is okay to say, you know what, guys, we are going to go for a walk around the classroom and we're going to get these wiggles out and then we're going to push this to a different time. So the kids understand, wow, yeah, I'm going to feel better after I do something like that. So again, flexible schedules, but consistent routines. And a little bit on that too. So routines also, what I have found helpful, especially working in after school too, is, I'm only with them for, I was only with them for like 3 hours a day, but you still want it to feel kind of like a home base, like a classroom base. So as soon as they would come in, I'd have a consistent greeting with my kids. If you're not doing greetings with your kids, what are you doing? Like, create that sense of community. That's part of wellness as well. I'm going to feel better in my classroom if my teacher knows my name and I get to do a little elbow rub with them every time that I come, or I get to do a little handshake or something like that. Something that brings that sense of, man, yeah, my morning wasn't very good, but now my teacher recognized me. They called me by my name. They made time for me, so come up with a consistent routine of we're all going to do a yoga thing and we're going to call everybody's name and do some kind of cool yoga pose, or we're going to do just some kind of fun breathing exercise and just a few more things too. To help with that inclusive environment. Calming centers are so important. But also I feel like what can be added are active centers. You have those kids that just might need that extra get the wiggle out, but you don't want to stop and take away from the rest of the classroom. So create a little center, and part of, we could help you with that too, but it could be like just a small little square in the corner of one of your classrooms where you have like a list of different activities that your kids could do, like jumping jacks. They could do 10 jumping jacks, or they could, maybe throw a ball into a basket 5 times. I mean, of course, you're going to go over the expectations. It's not just going to be a free for all, and it's not going to be a center that you rotate for free time. Just like the calming center is very intentional, it's to help calm and regulate, or, maybe a space that they need to be on their own, but also your active center is going to be intentional. Okay, you are trying to help these kids. We can't shut down that energy that they have, but we're not going to shame them for it. We're going to help them. So, okay, is 10 jumping jacks going to help you get that out? Okay. And then I think we have some handouts for that too that kind of go along with fit care. But then also in your lounge area, maybe you've got, some posters on the wall for your wellness. In your calming area, we got some breathing exercises for teachers, or maybe you want to get some steps in. So maybe there's like a staff goal of, okay, did you do your 200 steps today? Well, stand over here in this circle and do, do some like quick steps. I mean, you can make it fun. The whole part about all this wellness is for you and for the kids. You need to feel good so you can help the kids feel good and make it fun. Again, flexible schedules, consistent routines. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. What I was thinking the whole time was, uh, and we need this for adults. So when you brought that up, I thought that was so beautiful. And when I think about trying to think about my own wellness routine, it's the same concept, right? That we want to have flexible schedules with ourselves and consistent routines with ourselves and a whole lot of grace and self-compassion thrown in when we don't get it right or we miss the mark. Or I've been trying to do yoga every day in the morning, guys. Oh, I got a lot of grace for myself on that. We'll get there. But I think exactly what you just said was so awesome.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, and I'm sticking with Krista.
All right, to talk a little bit about the pyramid model. So, the pyramid model is a proven framework for promoting young children's social emotional development and preventing challenging behaviors. So that is really what we try to do at ECC, and I know Sarah, you help a lot. Like that's part of CRIM too. We're trying to prevent. It's all preventative. We're trying to prevent things. It helps early childhood educators build nurturing, responsive relationships. It creates high quality supportive environments and teach targeted skills for self-regulation and social competence. By using this tiered approach, universal supports for all, targeted supports for some, and individualized interventions for a few, it fosters positive outcomes for children, strengthens family partnerships, and creates inclusive, supportive classrooms where every child can thrive. So this is one of the main things that we use here at ECC. And to come to think about it, Rose and I were talking too, and it's like this is really encompasses everyone, right? I mean, if you have an effective workforce that you're working with to kind of, go back and forth with, that's going to help. You got those nurturing and responsive relationships in your life. I mean, us as teachers, you have a high quality supportive environment. I mean, it's good to reflect on, do you have these things? And then if not, then that's when we kind of do that reflective piece of, okay, what is missing here? And then also targeted social emotional supports. Okay, well, for ourselves, what are we doing? What are we doing to, help support this? So, um, I guess I could hand it over to Rose or Sarah to add.
Um, I think, yeah, you summarized what I was going to add on to that was just that it can be also for adults and that the pyramid model, like you said, Krista, if we don't have that base relationships and we don't feel confident in our environment, like it's not going to be successful, right? We need to make sure that's there. And then how do we scaffold and tailor those supports for the people that might need more. And it's okay that you might need more. You might need more intentional supports with your social and emotional skills, right? And then what do we get when we get to the top? Hopefully, then we can identify those additional supports too. So,
And I think we all have seasons, right? Where we might need be further up on that pyramid than others. And when we're uh, really strong in our wellness, maybe that's when we're getting to support someone else. And then it comes back around in the next season for us. Okay, so number 4, understanding ACEs, then focusing on resilience. So as some of you may know, ACEs could be a whole many hour training on its own. So we're going to give a very brief snapshot when we think about just defining what are ACEs when we say that word. And then what are some of those protective factors that mitigate that adversity that we may have experienced. Okay, so I know this slide has a lot going on it, but I'm just going to define what we mean when we say ACEs. So that's adverse childhood experiences is what that stands for. And there was a study done in the 90s that really focused on studying what's in the tree there, those household adversities. And these are things like abuse, neglect, domestic violence, incarceration, divorce, mental health issues, drug or alcohol abuse in the home. And so the researchers were asking this group of adults to mark off how many of those they had experienced. And then they were comparing that score with what they saw in chronic health problems in that same group of adults. And they found that the higher the ACE score, so the more things that they'd experienced as a child in their home, the greater likelihood that they would have different chronic health issues. So it could be heart problems, lung disease, diabetes, all the way up to a decreased lifespan of about 20 years of someone who has an ACE score of 6 compared to somebody with an ACE score of 0. So this to me really connects to how wellness is this all-encompassing thing, that adversity and stress affects us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and also physically in our bodies. And when we think about that stress or adversity, it's not only what happens in our homes, but when you look into the roots, those are things that might happen in our communities that increase those stress levels or adversity. So things like poverty, violence, historical trauma. And then we also know things in our environment. So that tornado on the side there can also increase our adversity. And so those could be natural disasters, climate crisis, the pandemic that we lived through. So all of those things can affect our well-being. But I never stop there when we talk about ACEs and adverse childhood experiences, because I think it's also really important when we go to the next slide, when we think about those positive childhood experiences. When we think about that, there we go. Okay, so when we think about our positive childhood experiences, these are just a few of the things that have been studied that can really mitigate or reduce some of those chronic health conditions or alleviate issues that come up when we go through those adversities, because we know that that's life, right? We want to be preventative and to lower those ACEs, but we also know that we've experienced things as children, and we also can lean into these pieces of resiliency. So when we think about positive childhood experiences, these are things like children feeling like they were able to talk to their family about their feelings. Their families stood by them during difficult times. They could participate in community events. Again, that sense of belonging and support by friends. Number 6 is the one that I always like to hit home on, that they had at least 2 non-parent adults who took genuine interest in them. That's you guys. right? This is our childcare providers that get to do that. And then number seven, feeling safe and protected by an adult in our homes. So when we think about what this again means we're holding both of these things. We're holding and understanding that trauma-informed perspective that we go through challenging things, and also these strengths, protective factors that help us get through. And I like to think about, even now, who are those people in my life that either supported me growing up or are supporting me now? And those are things that consistently help mitigate my stress levels and are so important and crucial when we think about that well-being together. The last piece here, when we think about using ACEs as a lens and not a label, I love this is a cram quote: adversity is not our destiny. So again, no matter what we've been through, what our kids have gone through, that's not the end of the story. That doesn't have to be the end of the story. And we can do all of these things for our kids, but also for ourselves and our staff. So avoiding deficit-based assumptions where maybe we're not thinking the best of others. We're going to use that strengths and protective factors perspective. So again, leaning into, what am I good at? What are my coworkers good at? What are those things that are helping us get through during these difficult times? Having that cultural identity. So what does that mean as a member of those different groups that you're a part of? Having that family connection. And family could be the family we're born into, and family could be those that we create around us for ourselves. It could be a work family. And then knowing our own ACEs, so being aware of what this might mean, our own biases, or maybe understanding our own triggers or what's going on inside of us. And there's more support that ECC can provide around understanding your own ACEs as well, if you're curious about that. So I think here, Krista, I'm
Yep.
going to throw this one over to you to talk about protective factors.
All right, protective factors. So I think I kind of touched on it a little while ago, where along with that compassion fatigue, we carry that with us, but what is the thing that we can control? Well, we can control being a protective factor for these kids. Now, here are, different perspectives of protective factors. So knowledge of parent and child development. Children thrive when parents provide not only affection, but also respectful communication and listening. Resilience, parents who can cope with the stress of everyday life as well as an occasional crisis have resilience. They have that flexibility. Um, Concrete support, so families who can meet their own basic needs for food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and who know how to access essential services such as childcare. Those social connections, parents with a social network of emotionally supportive friends, family, neighbors. It's often easier to care for their children than themselves. That social emotional competence, children's early experiences of being nurtured and developing a positive relationship with caring adult affects all aspects. So these are things that encompass that protective factors. But again, just to remember, you're one of the most influential people in a kiddo's life. So while, maybe again, talking about trauma and ACEs, some of those parents too, it's not just the kids, but yeah, they're going through their own trauma as well as they're trying to be a parent for their kids. So at least the one thing that they did take in a step in the right direction is they put their child in your care. I mean, they're trusting their child in your care. So the best thing that you could do is now you understand, okay, yeah, these parents are this, these parents are that. Well, that goes, back to your own biases of, okay, this parent's not doing this for this child. Well, okay, maybe they're going through their own situation themselves, but yet they're trying to be a parent. They're trying to feed the kids. They're trying to meet those basic needs. And they're not going to be perfect. None of us are going to be perfect, but where can we as providers pick up that, where can we pick up from what they're already doing? And again, it's putting aside our biases. Maybe we can't communicate with these parents, or maybe there's a reason, but we're going to provide this for these children. We are going to be a protective factor for these children. And maybe that child can gain those skills, kind of like we talked about, and pass it on to the parent. Maybe the child can be the protective factor for the parent. So there's that whole wellness encompassing everything. You are providing skills for the child, and that child may go on to help provide the skills for the parents now. So it's just it's well-rounded. Wellness, it's everything. But it may not be just one way. It might be different kinds of directions of how it works. So, um, yeah, and again, taking care of yourself. So back to that, you need to put yourself up there as well. So taking care of yourself, figuring out what you need for yourself in order to be the best protective factor for these kids. I mean, who knows, maybe that kid can in turn help you too. So again, it's just gonna go all over the place. So anyways, I could ramble on, but I'm not going to.
Thank you, Krista. And also, attendees, try to put yourself in as providing those 5 things for the kids. So, if you're resilient, if you have concrete support, if you have social connections, if you have social and emotional competence, and you have knowledge of child development, you can, like Krista said, be that protective factor. So, apply those concepts to yourself too. Okay, back over to Sarah.
Oh man. Okay. This is what I love so much and live and breathe. But we're going to do this in a few minutes. So here we go. So when we think about the community resilience model, these are some concrete wellness skills that we can apply in our daily life. So when we think about what we do, I want us to just brainstorm for a second. What are some small daily practices that you already do that help you get through your day or just group? Like when you need a minute, what do you do? So I'm going to invite you again, if you'd like to, just put some ideas in the chat. Like I love this picture on the slide here of like when we're watering our own plant, right? When we're just taking those little moments to hydrate ourselves. What are we doing? Pacing the room. That's what my husband does. That's totally what he does. He's a movement guy. He needs when he's talking on the phone, he's walking. That's what he does. Absolutely. Cool. Any other wellness practices that we do? I'm going to tell you one that I was doing today when I got home. So I had that break right between when I got home, got the kids, and then was needing to make supper and then get ready to come here. And I had to sit on the couch and tell myself, Sarah, you are going to sit on this couch for 2 minutes. And within that 2 minutes, I was literally counting in my head with my eyes closed. I tried to get off the couch about 10 times because I was like, no, I need to go. I need to vacuum. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I had to tell myself, stop for 2 minutes. And that can be really hard, but just counting in my own head while I was trying to notice myself on the couch. Okay. Oh my gosh. The chat is going wild. I love this. Okay. So enjoying a color by number app, or I go get a coffee or energy drink, music. Um, Personally, when I get too overwhelmed, I step out and check the mail. Oh, that's a great idea. And then you can notice the temperature, right, around you, a little reset. That's great. I'm going to use that. I love that. Being outside, getting some fresh air, swimming. I give the child that's frustrating me or causing me to stress a hug. It reminds me that they are not stressing me out on purpose. Okay, so I was in a training with a gal who does this hug therapy, which I don't know very much about, but what I took is I've started doing this with my kids. They're making me really mad, and I just look them dead in the face and I say, would you like a hug? Usually they say no, but it's my reminder, right? I love that. Thank you, Riley. My garden, I process in my car on the way to work, home from work with no noise or music. Same. I'm rarely without noise for boys under 10, and this silence is necessary. Yes, Rose. Taking a walk. Oh, so good. Stretching. That's what I was doing when my Zoom camera was off before this training started. I was doing all my stretches. Oh, let's just do that for a second right now. If you want to and you feel like you'd like to, just, oh, stretch it out. And it's so funny how simple it is and how we can forget that sometimes. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing those ideas. Now we're going to jump into our zone idea. Okay, again, I'm going to go through this really fast. And actually, will you just bring up the whole slide, Rose? So this concept is
Oh,
one that I think through every single day, multiple times a day. It just helps me understand my own experience and maybe gives language for me to understand what somebody else is going through. But when we think about that resiliency zone, that's really where we're at our best self or closer to our best self, where we're really feeling that well-being in our bodies. We're able to relate to other people, problem solve. We're feeling more present, calm, focused. Doesn't mean everything's going well or we're not maybe a little sad or uh, frustrated, but we're still able to cope. Like we can function when we're in that zone. And then we might get knocked into that high zone. That's going to be those escalating emotions or behaviors, anxiety, panic, angry outbursts, pain, like if headaches, things like that, or getting knocked into your low zone where you're just wanting to withdraw, you're super feeling depressed or isolated, really tired or numb, like totally checked out. And we can experience all of these things, and it's common human reactions. We just don't want to live in the high or the low zone. Um, for a long time. We don't want to get stuck there. We want to be able to notice and then get back into our resiliency zone. So my really quick story for this is that I was realizing, self-confession here, I was realizing that checking Facebook was a lightning bolt for me pretty much every time. And so in June, I did the bold move of disconnecting from my Facebook. And it has been amazing how often I still try to check Facebook on my phone, but it's been able to give me those moments of pause where normally I would be looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, I can't do that right now. I'm going to go do something else. So this past week, that's why I started a puzzle. I was noticing I'm getting a little bit in my high zone. So I'm going to get out my puzzle. Or this was a couple nights ago. I was really noticing, oh, getting in my low zone. I don't want to do anything. Sometimes that's okay. Maybe I need to go to bed early. That's okay. But I was noticing this. I think I need to do something. And so I went outside and I did chalk on the sidewalk. And pretty soon my kids are doing chalk, right? It doesn't have to be this huge thing, but I was able to notice which zone I was in and then try to do something to get back into that resiliency zone. So that's my very brief explanation of the resiliency zone. Now, when we think about the other pieces of CRIM, and again, we don't have time to go through all of the skills, but there are 6 wellness skills that go with the model. And it really is all about noticing what's going on in our bodies. And again, regulating our nervous system and being able to call to mind some of those really simple skills. So one of them we did already, resourcing, where we're calling to mind something calm, peaceful, hopeful. When we looked around the room at the beginning of this training. And then next, we're going to talk about Help Now, but I wanted to let you know that there's an app. It's called iChill, and that walks you through all of these skills. And at the end of the presentation today, we'll show you a bunch of different resources, including my own website that really gives some simple ideas on how to practice some of these skills. But the other one that I found really helpful besides Help Now that Krista's going to talk about in a second is grounding. And that's really just noticing your body in the present moment connected to a surface. And you can do that on your own or in the iChill app. There's like a meditation that walks you through that. And that really helps me slow down, especially when I'm in that high zone. So now I think I'm going to pass it over to Krista for some of our Help Now strategies.
So help now, you probably don't even realize that maybe you use or you do some of these skills already, but it's putting more intentionality now into giving you these options and being mindful about, why they're so important. So help now is recognizing something that you could do in the present moment. So, sometimes my body will purposely make me breathe. Like I'll start to get worked up, and then my body literally is just like, just make me breathe. So I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be a strategy that I'm going to use if I notice that I'm starting to get, you know, yeah, full, yeah, full sigh. It's like, but again, back to, breathing. If breathing is something that you like to do, then that could be a help now strategy that you could use. It may not work for everybody. And again, what we have to realize too is working with kids as well, sometimes you might be trying to do a breathing strategy and this kid is just not resonating with breathing. So it's figuring out what works for kids as well. A quick personal story, helping my kid try to figure out how to regulate and how to get through school. I know that kindergarten was a rough year. And then the beginning of first grade was rough. So we kind of talked about his resources, which were kind of like these help now skills, but they were resources that he had helped come up with. So he had talked about stretching, splashing water in his face, if he was starting to get, or running in place or taking a drink of water. We called them his resources, but really it was off the basis of these help now skills. So, what skills can you use right away? Do you like to drink water? So do you just have your water handy right away? Um, do you like to maybe, somebody said pace, so okay, you can't leave the room if you got kids, but could you just do a quick like back and forth, or again, with your kids, hey, we're just gonna walk the classroom. This is for me, but it's also for you. So we're gonna walk the classroom. Again, you could include your kids in these help now strategies because the more that you try, maybe they're going to find something that works for them. Um,
Can
Counting
I add
backwards from,
something to
yeah,
that?
sure,
Sorry, I hate to interrupt. It
that's
just
okay.
on my brain. It's I was the pace back and forth. I can't tell you how many times I've paced and then all of a sudden I have all of them pacing behind me and I'm just like, what are you guys doing? They're like, I don't know, what are you doing? And I was like, really, I don't know, but like right now we're just all trying to function and let's refocus. And then we get back to what we're doing. Like we pace. That I don't we pace in my class.
That is okay. I mean, that's exactly what you gotta do. Like, you just reach for a resource. I also have, maybe you have a poster on the wall that has a positive quote, where someplace on the wall, you're looking at this quote and you're like, okay, I can get through this. Or maybe it's a funny picture to just trick your brain and be like, okay, all right, let's get back to it. It's any of these strategies that you could use. Again, too, these can be preventative strategies as well. So maybe you're going to get into, maybe your high stress time is going into nap time. Maybe it's going into lunchtime. Maybe it's getting ready to transition, and you know that that's a trigger for you that gets your heart pumping, that is just one of those times that you can't handle. Well, what is one of these preventative strategies maybe that can help you at least take that breather, take that, all right, I'm going to just chug my water and then we're going to conquer this lunchtime. I'm going to take my deep breath and we're going to get through this and it's going to be great. It's creating that intentionality of, okay, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to do this strategy to get me through the day. And you are modeling how to get through a stressful situation, and that's where you can teach those kids to be like, okay, we're about ready to do this. And you know that maybe little Johnny gets a little heightened in the moment. So, what resource can you teach him? What skill can you teach him to help him get through a difficult time? Or in the moment, all right, all right, go grab your water. You know that helps you get through this, So again, these are just wellness strategies that it can be preventative, can be in that time when you need it. But yeah. Anybody else want to add?
I think that's a really good segue to our next topic. And Elena, we're going to bring back up what you talked about here in just a second. When we think about relationships as the vehicle for wellness, if you want to jump to the next slide, Rose. So just rapid fire for like 30 seconds when we think about how we're showing up, because we know more than anything else, what's most important is the relationships that we develop with our kids, right? Number one, all the research everywhere shows that that is the most important thing. So I just want you to think back. Who was someone who showed up for you when you were young? And if you want to put it in the chat, that's great. I'm going to tell you, I can tell you right off the bat, my first grade teacher, Mrs. Doremus, she was it for me. I was very shy and quiet, if you can believe that, as a little first grader. And I spent my whole day at my desk thinking of things that I could tell Mrs. Doremus. And I would go back and forth the entire day. And she never shut me down. And I always felt validated and like I belonged in that classroom. So she is the one that for me when I think about that. We have in the chat my grandma and my first boss, Frances. Awesome. So anybody else is just thinking about who showed up for me. And then you can think about, okay, how do I want to show up for the kids that I work with, right? As we think about that. Okay, so just keep that in your mind. We're going to go to the next slide. Sister, sixth grade teacher. I love it. Mom, third and fourth grade teachers. Beautiful. Keep it coming if you want to. Okay, Elena talked about pacing, and then suddenly all the kids are pacing behind her. What's happening is some mirror neurons and some modeling, right? We've used that word before. When we think about mirror neurons, it's literally in our brains, these parts of our brain that are firing just as we watch other people do something. The same parts of the brain that are working in that person who's doing the activity are also firing in the other person that is watching them. And then sometimes that prompts that action. So when we practice our own wellness, or when we need to circle back because we have not been practicing our wellness and we're coming back into that, we're showing and modeling that as well. But we got some more here. I got to add these. So for people who have shown up for us, my dad, who was also my teacher, my aunt Maurice, Mrs. Parks, my first grade teacher, my cousin Jan. So we have had these examples that we're pulling in to be models for us as we think about how we want to show up for those kids. Cool. For me, the first time I felt I was heard, I was almost 32. It took the crew I had to get me to who I am. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that, and shout out to your crew for feeling that. Good for you. Okay, will you jump to the next slide for me, Rose? I want to add one thing here before I toss it to Krista. Okay, so when we think about healing happening through attuned relationships, that means when we share space together, we are literally picking up each other's vibes, right? In that attachment. And I just wanted to share this really quick story because it was so cool when it happened. Okay, so my husband and I were driving two separate vehicles. He was behind me, and his phone, he has connected to Bluetooth before in my van. And as we're driving, I'm in front of him, right? And all of a sudden, through my van, I start picking up this music coming from somewhere. And it keeps coming in and out, right? And I start to realize, oh my gosh, my van is picking up the songs from his phone as we're driving. And as we're close together, I can hear the music. And when we get further apart, I can't hear it anymore. And to me, that was such a beautiful example of what attunement means and that attachment of literally when we were close together, I could hear his music. I could share in that space with him. And that's the same with our emotions, with our well-being. When we are in that resiliency zone, other people are going to attune to that and resonate with that as well. So I'm just so excited to share that with you all. And now I will throw it to Krista.
Keep talking, Sarah. Keep talking. I love how you just sum everything up. Like that's just you're so good at, pulling pieces together. I just sometimes feel like I'm like all over the place. So I just like how you bring it together. Um, I'm gonna talk mostly about rupture and repair because I could win a gold medal in that. As a mother, I feel like too, I just there are so many times where I feel so bad that, it could be just throughout our days. We have to work with kids, and we have to work with adults and then we have to work with, we have to drive in traffic or we have to go to a grocery store at 5 o'clock and deal with all the people there, So some of these things can just get us, mostly me, get us worked up, and then our poor kids at the end of the day, they just want their mom or they want their dad or, their guardian. And I am clear in my high zone now and I'm trying to bring it back down. But, just the smallest things might just make me, explode or get a little, too hyper at my kids. And then it's like, okay, this is not their fault at all. They're just, living as the end of the day for them. Maybe they went through things and I didn't even get to ask them about it. And so I'm very good at trying to repair it though. At the end of the day, I never, and I think I learned this from my mom and dad. They were like, we're not going to go to bed angry at each other. It's okay to have those feelings, but we're going to repair it. We may not fix it. We're not looking to fix the situation, but how can we at least repair it to where we're back together? I understand that you felt this way, I felt this way, so we're going to repair it and then we can move on from there. And so my kids, they are so gracious because every time I go to them, I'm like, I am so sorry that I came off, this way or this way. And sometimes there's tears. Sometimes, and I don't want to put that all on my kids. I'm not just dumping on them, but I'm showing them I apologize that I got to this level. You didn't deserve that. We're going to get through this together. And then they model it backwards like, Mom, we get it. Yeah. I heard about this at your job and you should have seen that guy what he did to you like in traffic, we just talk about it. And so maybe that's not the best example, but I just I don't know. They're really good about understanding and then they show it together. So like I can see my daughter will, jump at brother and brother to sister, but then they're really good about just like talking about it and then they move on. So I think it's very important.
Those
Rupture.
are great examples. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Okay. On to our last principle. So, Sarah, we're going to cruise through this one.
All right, we're taking it home. Here we go. So again, we talked about wellness is both self-care and community care, right? I love that idea. Uh, that is what we do for ourselves and what we do together in those spaces that we share. So when we look at this one, I'm actually going to skip this one, Rose. Let's just go to the next one. All right. So when we think about, we don't do this alone. We do this work together, collaboratively. And when we think about wellness, just like we can schedule out and have that, I wrote it down because Krista said it so beautifully, flexible schedules, but consistent routines. We can think about how we embed wellness practices in that same way. So when we think about creating those spaces, it could be those peer reflective spaces that we have, again, that we actually plan time in to do that. Human-centered accountability. So again, rupture and repair. How do we come back and work it out? Mental health pauses. So I love this idea of very rarely do we have these like large blocks of time that we can do these longer mental wellness pieces. When we do get them, that's important. Take your vacations, right? Do those things. But we also need those small pauses throughout our day or maybe when we get home or right before we go to bed, where we're taking a little bit of time to check in and do that as a staff too. Can we build those pauses in and that shared decision making and then advocacy as we think about giving voice to what we need and finding that way to support each other. And then this quote, just coming back to this idea that wellness is justice in action. So when we think about how we all need wellness, to me, that's social justice. Like we all deserve and are worthy of taking care of ourselves, every single one of us. And I think we're really good about knowing that for our kids. And sometimes we're not so good about knowing that for ourselves. So this is just a reminder that you're worth it. Your well-being is important. And I think I'm going to pass this to someone else.
I just want to add quick on here, just don't be afraid to speak up. Speak up in meetings. Testify for policy change, support equity and culturally sustaining practices. Like if you believe as a child care provider that you can do more, then do more. Don't wait for somebody else to come along because that might be your job. Maybe that's your calling. That if you're thinking it and if you're feeling that, hey, I think I could do more, or hey, I have a good suggestion, or this or that, don't stop. Your voice is just as important as, maybe somebody that's higher up, but your voice is still just as important. So don't be afraid to speak up.
Okay, do we have time for this reflective one, Sarah, or should we move on? Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
For the sake of respecting everyone's time, I think we will not go into this a ton. But when we think about just thinking back, what are you resonating with the most? What do you want to take back into practice? And then maybe what I like to think about is what's one thing you could commit to? So, like for me, I commit to when I wake up in the morning, I take 10 deep breaths, I say a loving kindness mantra, I say the benediction and the Lord's Prayer. That's what I say before I get out of bed. So that's like one thing that I can commit to. Is there one thing that you can add to your routine that you want to take back with you? Just one thing. And I think that can feel really empowering. Like, okay, I don't know what else the day is going to bring, but I can do this one thing when I get up. And then before I go to bed, I write one thing that brought me joy or that I'm grateful for in the day. And that I didn't add for a while. So it's like, okay, I can kind of scaffold this wellness. That's all I'm going to say on this slide.
And to kind of add on to that, I think those small little things can help you feel like you have control over something in your life, right? We need to feel like we have power over sometimes we don't feel like we have a lot of control over the way our days go. So like those examples that Sarah said, you have control over doing that. So that can be very empowering. So here are a list of our resources that we identified. Some of them we touched on within the training. Some of you got handouts for. So the Early Childhood Enrichment, that is the SDECE Resource Hub. And I'm going to drop in the chat here. Oh, the CRIM minutes. Maybe I will. As you guys are taking the evaluation, I will be dropping some of those links in there. Some of the other ones that Sarah had mentioned, the Trauma Resource Institute, Worthy We, which that is, like she said, her personal business. I didn't know that you had some tips and stuff on there, Sarah, so I'm excited to go poke around on there and see what you have. Fit Sanford, like Krista said, that's kind of her niche here at ECC, all things like wellness related. She does a ton of training. So if you're interested in taking this back into the classroom, you should reach out to her. And then the Devereaux Center has some amazing trainings that dive deeper into like the trauma-informed care and that resiliency. So that would be a really good avenue for professional development as well. Did I miss any in the notes, Sarah, that you wanted me to touch on?
I just wanted to highlight so what Rose might be able to drop in the chat, the CRIM minutes that are on the early childhood website. So that is 52 pages, and each page is like a wellness reminder. It could be a skill, but it's like a little tip, and then it has a quote that goes with it. So that would be great when Krista was talking about maybe those calming spots for staff. Like the point of those was every week you could print one off and hang it up as a reminder. And on my website, this is embarrassing, but on my blog section, it links to a little video that I did that connects to those crib minutes. So if you want to listen to 5 minutes of Sarah talking, you can check that out.
I love that. Okay, professional growth opportunities, just because I like to throw these in so that you guys feel empowered to move forward and consider yourselves as professionals. The top two are kind of Krista's cup of tea. I'll let her mention like what those are and how you could maybe access more information.
So National After School Association is, we call it NAA, and that's with, if you work in the after school realm, before and after school realm, that is the national website that just has a ton of different information. It has a lot of different core competencies that kind of align with ECC's core knowledge and competencies, but there are tons of articles that they put out. There's videos, webinars that they put out, but it's all after school based, but there's still good tips. Like if you're working with kids that are going into kindergarten and things like that, you could find some resources to help them. Um, and you don't have to be a member to get online to look at their stuff, but as a member, you get benefits. And then SODAC SACA is the state South Dakota affiliate for the National After School Association. So they go hand in hand. And if you want more information, I can feel free to let you know.
Perfect. And I'll just briefly say SADACE is the local chapter of NACCE, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Very similar to what Krista defined for NAA, but it is for birth through age 8. So, and if you want more information, I'm your local rep, so I can walk you through what that looks like and what the resources are. Let's see. I don't want to keep you guys past. So instead, I'm gonna close, pull up the evaluation, and we will circle back to these questions while you guys are doing the evaluations. Because like Sarah said, I want to honor your time. So let's close really quick. Here's my closing quote. It's your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop. So thank you so much for coming tonight. And again, like we said, wellness isn't just lighting a candle at the end of the night, taking a walk. It's about putting it all together. It's about creating systems where children, caregivers, and families can thrive. It's about acknowledging the invisible work that you guys do, holding space for caregivers and families, embedding trauma-informed, culturally responsive practices into everything you do. So tonight you got to reflect on what that looks like, what it means to you, and then also you got some strategies that are grounded in science to move you forward in this work. So as you return to your programs, remember that wellness isn't just a luxury. It's not that add-on, it's a right. And it's not separate from your work, it is the work because it's intermeshed, right? So every moment you invest in creating safe, nurturing, and responsive environments sends a powerful message to children that you matter, you're safe, and your wholeness is honored. So thank you again for joining. Let's move over to our evaluation piece. I'm going to skip over these next couple of ones. Here is the QR code for the evaluation. I will actually drop that in the chat as well so that I can, if anybody cannot do the QR code, let me drop the link. Hold on one second. Okay, if you don't have access to a QR scanner, there is the link to the evaluation as well. So that's how we'll issue your training certificates. Now let's pop back over to those questions. Okay, so while you guys are taking those evaluations, let's listen to the experts talk about the answers for these.
Krista, just kidding. These, first of all, I want to say these are great questions, and I feel like these are really important and things that we can consistently feel and that we all have felt. So I just want to honor that first. But the first question, how can I sustain passion for my work when I feel overwhelmed or undervalued? To me, when I think about that, first of all, I just want to say I've been there. I feel that sometimes, and sometimes that's a clue for me. Like, okay, am I feeling in my high or my low zone? But it might be as simple as some pauses, and some reminders of I don't have to do it all. I don't have to do it alone. Simply showing up and loving on those kids is the most important part. And to me, like coming back to that baseline, I remember this really quick story, but I remember as a school social worker, I was working with it was a grandma, and I was talking to her on the phone, and she had so much happening, and there was so little I could do. And I remember just listening to her on the phone and literally feeling like I'm doing nothing for her. And at the end of the conversation, she said to me, "Thank you for listening. I think that's just what I needed." And I wrote that on a piece of paper and I stuck it to my computer. So on those hard days, I could look at that and remember, okay, even when I feel like I can't do anything, I can show up and I can listen and I can love those people in front of me. So for me, that helps me um, just kind of remember why I do what I do. Krista, anything you are thinking on that one?
Um, that one, I feel like you covered it with that great example. I have one for the second question. What if my coworkers are burned out or negative? How can I protect my own mindset? From a personal lived experience, I worked in an environment that would get pretty negative sometimes, and I would start to feel it like come down on me, and I'm kind of a spunky, happy go lucky, like jokester person. And when I felt that like kind of coming down on me, I realized, well, do I want to fall down with them, or do I want to maybe still be my person and see if I can pull them back out? So I honed in on my strengths. So my advice to you is, what is your strength? My strength was telling jokes and just being the little social butterfly, which I'm sure Rose could tell you I flutter over there sometimes. She's right next door to me and I might like pop in and say something funny, but that is my coping way to get my mind through. So I'm joke. Are your strengths, are you great in the kitchen? Okay, would you mind baking, some goodies and kind of raising the morale? Or is your strength, motivational speaking? Well, just come up and do a positive quote every day, even if you don't think people are listening. Like, don't fall down with people. See if you can be the one to raise them back up, because it's got to start somewhere. And if you're the one that's like, well, my coworkers are this, I don't want to be like that. Hone in on a strength that you have and pull them back out of the fire. It works. It took some time, but eventually people they started laughing and I'd get the morale going every now and then. So yeah, hone in on a strength.
I love it. I love both of your answers and examples and how you both brought lived experience to it. And I think that hopefully you attendees can feel those answers and take that back, that lean into your strengths when you're feeling that everyone around you is burnt out or negative. And then how do we feel passion for a field when we don't feel valued? And I think Sarah, hit the nail on the head with you are valued and we see you even if you don't always get that verbal affirmation like she did with the grandma. Like there are people that do see you and appreciate you. So okay, we're not going to keep you here any longer. If you are still working on the evaluation, feel free to take your time and finish up. I am very thankful for you all and all of the hard work that you guys do every day and showing up for these children and loving on them. And it's a connection and relationship field, and it is very taxing, but it also can be very rewarding. So I'm very thankful to get to know and work with all of you. I will allow each of the experts to add in some closing thoughts, and then we will conclude our evening.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the invitation to be here. Thank you all for showing up to this meeting, but also just showing up every day for the kids that you work with, showing up for yourself, your coworkers. We need you. Um, thank you for what you do.
Yep, just what everybody said. Thank you guys so much. You guys, you're the superheroes. You know, you're sticking with it. You have the passion, you have the drive. Don't give up on that. Still take time for yourself, better yourself, but it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for that extra person to say, "Hey, I need some help. Come help me so I can help them." So, thank you.
Oh, and we have a couple good comments. Thank you for your time. It was great, and this meeting was awesome. So I agree with them. I'm very thankful for both you, Sarah and Krista. You guys brought some amazing information, anecdotal stories. So, and you guys are both pretty fun to listen to speak. So, yeah, I'm very thankful that you guys agreed. Okay. Thank you all.
Go get some rest, everybody.
Mhm.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Rose.
Yeah, thanks.
See you soon, Sarah.
Hi, Rose. Bye.
Hi.
Somebody wants to say bye to you.
Hi, Noah.
And say bye. Bye. Bye.
Um,
Is it over? Yep. Thanks.
Hi, Krista. Waiting on two more.